The clock on the hotel nightstand read 11:47 p.m., my wedding night. I was still in my white dress, sitting on the edge of a king-size bed at the Marriott in downtown Charlotte, staring at a text message that would rearrange every single thing I thought I knew about my life. "Don't wait up. Need to handle something. Be back later." That was it. That was the message my husband of 6 hours sent me while I sat alone in our honeymoon suite, surrounded by rose petals the hotel staff had scattered across the duvet. There was a bottle of champagne sweating in an ice bucket on the desk, 2 glasses beside it, both untouched. The card next to it read, "Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Brandon Holloway." I read the text 3 times. Then I put my phone down, walked to the bathroom mirror, and looked at myself. Mascara still perfect, hair still pinned up with the little crystal pins my mom had given me, lips still faintly pink from the lipstick I'd reapplied after the reception. I didn't cry. I want you to understand that because it matters later. I did not shed a single tear. Something inside me, something I didn't even know existed, just clicked, like a switch flipping, like a door locking from the inside. And by the next morning, Brandon Holloway would learn that the woman he married was not the woman he thought he could walk all over. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this really started. 2 years earlier, I was 26 years old, working as a loan officer at First National Bank on Providence Road. My name is Ashley Parker. Well, it was Parker then, and honestly, it didn't stay Holloway for long either, but we'll get to that. I had a small 1-bedroom apartment in the Noda neighborhood, a decent credit score of 741, a paid-off Honda Civic, and exactly $14,200 in my savings account. I wasn't rich, but I was stable. I was proud of that stability because I'd built it from nothing. My mom, Linda Parker, raised me and my younger brother, Kevin, completely alone after my dad left when I was 9. She worked 2 jobs, receptionist at a dentist's office during the day, stocking shelves at Target 3 nights a week. We never went hungry, but I knew what it felt like to hear your mom crying in the kitchen at midnight because the electric bill was past due. That shaped me. It made me careful. It made me the kind of person who reads every line of a contract before signing. The kind of person who keeps receipts. Remember that. I keep receipts. I met Brandon at a friend's barbecue in June. My college roommate, Danielle, was hosting a cookout at her place in Huntersville, and Brandon showed up with a mutual friend named Travis. He was tall, 6'1", with dark hair and this easy, confident smile that made you feel like you were the only person at the party. He worked in pharmaceutical sales, drove a black Audi, and had this way of listening to you that felt almost theatrical in its intensity. Like everything you said was the most fascinating thing he'd ever heard. "So you're a loan officer," he said, handing me a beer from the cooler. "That means you're good with numbers." "It means I'm good with people who are bad with numbers," I said. He laughed. A real laugh, not a polite one. I like that. Honest and funny. That's rare. We talked for 3 hours that night. He told me about growing up in Raleigh, about his parents' messy divorce when he was 16, about how he'd worked his way through NC State selling car parts online. He seemed genuine. He seemed like someone who understood struggle, who respected hard work, who valued loyalty because he'd seen what disloyalty does to a family. Our first date was dinner at a little Italian place in South End. He held doors open. He asked about my mom, my brother, my goals. He told me he wanted kids someday, 2, maybe 3, a house with a yard, a life that felt warm. I remember thinking, this is the kind of man you build something with. By month 3, we were inseparable. He'd show up at my apartment with takeout and flowers on random Tuesdays. He'd text me good morning every single day without fail. He came to my mom's house for Thanksgiving, and afterward she pulled me aside in the kitchen and said, "Ashley, that boy looks at you like you hung the moon." I believed her. I believed all of it. By month 8, we moved in together. A 2-bedroom apartment in Ballantyne, $1,650 a month, split evenly. He was meticulous about that. Always Venmo'd me. his half on the first of the month. He kept his closet organized, did dishes without being asked, and remembered the name of every single one of my coworkers. My friend Danielle said he was almost too perfect. I laughed it off. I should not have laughed it off. At the 1-year mark, Brandon proposed. It was a Saturday afternoon at Freedom Park. He'd set up a little picnic, cheese, crackers, strawberries, a bottle of Prosecco. There was a guy with a guitar playing Can't Help Falling in Love about 30 feet away, and I later found out Brandon had paid him $200 to be there at exactly that moment. He got down on one knee, opened a velvet box with a round-cut diamond ring. Later I'd learn it was 1.2 carats, $6,800 from a jeweler in Uptown, and said, "Ashley Marie Parker, I want to spend every morning and every night with you for the rest of my life. Will you marry me?" I said yes before he finished the sentence. The engagement was 10 months of pure, chaotic happiness. My mom cried when I showed her the ring. Kevin, my brother, shook Brandon's hand and said, "You heard her, I'll find you." Everyone laughed. Brandon clapped Kevin on the shoulder and said, "You won't have to." We booked a venue, a restored barn outside of Mooresville, $7,500 for the day. I found my dress at a bridal shop in Dilworth, a strapless A-line with lace overlay, $2,200. My mom insisted on paying for it. "This is what I've been saving for," she told me, pressing a check into my hand with tears in her eyes. I planned every detail. The flowers, white peonies and eucalyptus, the cake, 3 tiers, vanilla with raspberry filling from a bakery in Plaza Midwood, the DJ, the photographer, the seating chart that took me 4 separate evenings to finalize because Brandon's Aunt Karen couldn't sit near his Uncle Doug due to some argument about a timeshare in Myrtle Beach that happened in 2019. Brandon was involved, but in a hands-off way. "You've got better taste than me, babe," he'd say. "I trust you." At the time, I thought that was sweet. Looking back, I think he just didn't care enough to bother. There was one thing, though, one small, quiet thing that I noticed but chose not to examine too closely. And I need to tell you about it because it's the thread that, when pulled, unraveled everything. Her name was Jennifer Castillo, Brandon's ex-girlfriend. They dated for 3 years before me. From his senior year of college through age 25, according to Brandon, she was toxic, dramatic, and obsessed with control. He said she'd cheated on him with a coworker, that the breakup was ugly, and that he'd finally walked away for good about 5 months before he met me. "She's in the past," he told me once early on. "Completely. I don't even think about her." And I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He never brought her up. He never talked about her. His phone was always face up on the table. He never acted suspicious or secretive. But about 4 months before the wedding, something shifted. It was subtle, the kind of thing you only recognize in hindsight when you're sitting alone in a hotel room on your wedding night, rereading a text that says, "Don't wait up." It started with a phone call. We were on the couch watching a movie. I think it was a Thursday night, and his phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and something crossed his face. Just a flicker, a half second of something I couldn't name. He declined the call and set the phone back down. "Who was that?" I asked, casual as anything. "Spam," he said. "Probably about my car's extended warranty." I laughed. He smiled. But the phone had shown a name on the screen, not a number. I only caught the first letter before he flipped it over. Could have been anyone. Could have been his buddy Jake from work. Could have been his cousin Jacob. But a week later, it happened again. This time, we were in bed, and his phone buzzed on the nightstand at 11:15 p.m. He reached for it fast, faster than normal, read whatever was on the screen, and then typed something quick before setting it back down. "Everything okay?" I murmured, half asleep. "Yeah," he said. "Just Travis being dumb in the group chat." I let it go. Of course I let it go, because I trusted him. Because I was 4 months away from marrying this man, and I had a seating chart to finalize and a florist to confirm and a future to build. But 3 weeks after that, I was using Brandon's laptop to check our wedding registry. We'd set one up at Target and one at Crate and Barrel, and his Gmail was open in another tab. I wasn't snooping. I genuinely was not snooping. The tab was just there, and my eyes drifted to the sidebar, and I saw a name in his recent messages that made my stomach do something strange. Jennifer Castillo. The preview text showed just a fragment. Miss the way we used to. My hand hovered over the trackpad. My heart was doing that thing where it beats so hard you can feel it in your throat. I could have clicked. I could have opened that email right then and there, 4 months before the wedding, and maybe everything would have been different. But I didn't click. I closed the laptop, pressed my palms flat on the kitchen counter, and took 3 slow breaths. Then I told myself what every woman in love tells herself when the evidence is staring her in the face. It's probably nothing. Old emails. Maybe she reached out and he ignored it. He said she was in the past. He promised me. I didn't bring it up. Not that night, not the next day, not ever. I buried it under wedding planning and excitement and the absolute refusal to believe that the life I was building could have a crack in its foundation. The wedding was October 14th. The weather was perfect. 68 degrees, clear sky, golden afternoon light filtering through the barn's open doors. 112 guests. My mom in the front row in a navy blue dress, already crying before I even walked down the aisle. Kevin standing tall beside her, his hand on her shoulder, and Brandon waiting at the altar in a charcoal gray suit, looking at me with those eyes. That smile, the one that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. I walked toward him, and I believed every step was carrying me toward the rest of my life. I had no idea it was carrying me toward the last night I would ever be that naive. The ceremony was beautiful. The vows were traditional, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health. Brandon's voice cracked when he said, "I do," and his best man, Travis, handed him a tissue and everyone laughed. I slid the ring onto his finger and he slid one onto mine, and the officiant said, "I now pronounce you husband and wife." And the barn erupted in applause. The reception was everything I dreamed of. The first dance, the toasts, the cake cutting where Brandon smeared frosting on my nose and I pretended to be mad. My mom gave a speech that made half the room cry. Travis gave a speech that made the other half laugh. The DJ played September by Earth, Wind and Fire, and the dance floor was packed until the lights came up at 10. But here is what I noticed, and what I filed away without fully processing. Brandon checked his phone 4 times during the reception. 4 times. Once during dinner, once during the toasts, once while I was dancing with my mom, and once, the last time, right before we left for the hotel. Each time, he'd glance at the screen, and that same flicker would cross his face. That same half-second of something unnamed. We got to the Marriott at 10:30 p.m. The room was gorgeous. The rose petals, the champagne, the soft lighting. I went to the bathroom to freshen up, and when I came out, Brandon was standing by the window, his phone pressed to his ear. He saw me and said quickly, "Yeah, okay, I gotta go." Then he hung up. "Who is that?" I asked. "Travis," he said. "Left his jacket at the venue. Wanted to know if I grabbed it." I nodded, smiled, walked toward him. And then his phone buzzed again. He looked down at it, and this time, the flicker wasn't a flicker. It was a flinch. Something shifted behind his eyes. Something urgent and guilty and alive. "Ash," he said slowly, "I need to step out for a bit." "Step out?" I repeated. "It's our wedding night." I know. It's just, Travis is really drunk and he's talking about driving home, and I just need to go make sure he gets an Uber. 20 minutes, tops." He kissed my forehead, grabbed his keys from the desk, and walked out the door. 20 minutes passed, then 40, then an hour. I texted him at 11:30. "Everything okay?" That's when the reply came. 11:47 p.m. 7 words that changed everything. "Don't wait up. Need to handle something. Be back later." I sat on the edge of that bed, in my wedding dress, surrounded by rose petals that suddenly looked like something wilting, and I felt the ground beneath me start to shift. Not crack. Not yet, but shift. Like the first tremor before an earthquake that hasn't decided how much it wants to destroy. I didn't call him back. I didn't text again. I didn't cry. Instead, I picked up my phone and opened his Gmail. Because 2 months ago, when we were setting up our joint budget spreadsheet, he'd logged into his account on my phone and never logged out. And this time, I clicked on Jennifer Castillo's name. What I found in those emails made the rose petals on the bed feel like a crime scene. But that is where the next part of this story begins. I scrolled through the emails between Brandon and Jennifer Castillo, and the room around me disappeared. The rose petals, the champagne, the soft glow of the bedside lamp, all of it just ceased to exist. There was only my phone screen, the blue light on my face, and the words that dismantled my marriage one sentence at a time. The emails went back 5 months. 5 months. That meant they'd started talking again right around the time I noticed that first phone call, the one he said was spam. The early messages were casual, almost innocent on the surface. Jennifer had reached out first. "Hey, I know it's been a while. I heard you're getting married. Congratulations. I just wanted to say I hope you're happy." And Brandon had replied within 14 minutes. "Thanks, Jen. That means a lot coming from you. I am happy. How are you doing?" That reply alone told me everything. Not the words, the speed. 14 minutes. This was a man who sometimes took 3 hours to text me back about what he wanted for dinner. But Jennifer Castillo gets a response in 14 minutes. From there, the tone shifted gradually, like a slow leak you don't notice until the ceiling caves in. By week 2, they were reminiscing. "Remember that weekend in Asheville?" she wrote. "The cabin with the broken heater and we had to sleep in all our clothes?" His reply, "I think about that trip more than I should." By month 2, the emails had moved past nostalgia into something raw. Jennifer wrote, "I miss the way we used to talk. Nobody listens like you do." And Brandon, my Brandon, the man who'd gotten down on one knee at Freedom Park and cried when he said, "I do," wrote back, "I miss it too, more than you know. Things with Ashley are good, but they're different, comfortable. You and I were never comfortable. We were alive." I read that line 4 times. Comfortable. He called what we had comfortable, like I was a worn-in couch, like our love was something you settle into when you're too tired to feel anything real. The most recent email was from 3 days before the wedding. 3 days. Jennifer had written, "Are you sure about Saturday? Once you say those vows, that's it." And Brandon replied, "I'm sure about saying them. I'm just not sure they'll change what I feel when I talk to you." I locked my phone, set it face down on the nightstand, and I sat there in the silence of that hotel room, in my $2,200 wedding dress that my mother had paid for with money she'd scraped together over years of double shifts, and I made a decision. I was not going to fall apart. I was not going to call him sobbing at 1 a.m, begging him to come back, asking him what Jennifer had that I didn't. I was not going to give him the satisfaction of my desperation, because that's what he expected. That's what men like Brandon count on. The idea that you've invested so much, sacrificed so much, that you'll cling to the wreckage just to avoid admitting it was all for nothing. Instead, I took off my wedding dress, hung it carefully in the closet, put on the pajamas I'd packed. Plain gray cotton, nothing bridal about them. Washed my face, brushed my teeth, and got into bed. And then I called my brother. Kevin picked up on the second ring. "Ash, it's after midnight. Aren't you supposed to be, busy right now? Kevin, I need you to listen to me." Something in my voice must have registered, because his tone changed instantly. "What happened? Are you okay? Did he hurt you?" "Not physically," I said, "but I need you to do something for me tomorrow morning. Can you be at my apartment by 8? "Our apartment? Yours and Brandon's?" "Mine," I said. "It's mine. My name is on the lease. I need you there at 8. Bring boxes. There was a pause, a long one. Then Kevin said very quietly, I'll be there at 7:30. I hung up and stared at the ceiling. The champagne was still sweating in its bucket. The 2 glasses were still untouched. Somewhere in Charlotte, my husband was with Jennifer Castillo, and I was alone on my wedding night with a plan forming in my head that was so clear, so precise, it almost scared me. Brandon came back at 4:17 a.m. I know because I was awake, lying still in the dark with my eyes closed, listening to the keycard beep and the door swing open. He moved quietly, shoes off, tiptoeing, like a teenager sneaking back into his parents' house. I smelled something on him, not perfume exactly, but something unfamiliar, a different soap, a different space. He slid into bed beside me, didn't touch me, didn't say a word. Within minutes, his breathing slowed into sleep, easy and unbothered, like a man with absolutely nothing on his conscience. I lay there until 6:30 a.m. Then I got up, showered, dressed in jeans and a sweater, and packed my overnight bag. Brandon was still asleep, sprawled diagonally across the bed, one arm flung over the spot where I'd been lying. I left the hotel room without waking him. Didn't leave a note. Took the champagne with me, though. My mom could use a nice bottle. Kevin was already at the apartment when I pulled into the parking lot at Ballantyne. He was leaning against his truck, arms crossed, 2 large boxes from Home Depot at his feet. He looked at my face and didn't ask questions. He just picked up the boxes and followed me inside. His stuff or your stuff? He asked. His stuff goes in the bedroom, my stuff goes in the truck. It took us 3 hours. I was methodical, another trait I got from my mother. Clothes, shoes, toiletries, books, the framed photos from the hallway, my kitchen gadgets, my throw blankets, the set of ceramic mugs I'd bought at a craft fair in Waxhaw. I left everything that was Brandon's exactly where it was. I didn't trash his clothes, didn't cut up his suits, didn't pour bleach on anything. That's not who I am. I'm not dramatic. I'm thorough. At 10:15 a.m., my phone rang. Brandon. I answered on the 3rd ring. Hello? Ash, where are you? I woke up and you were gone. The front desk said you checked out. His voice had that careful, measured quality, the tone of a man who knows he's in trouble but isn't sure how much. I'm at the apartment, I said, picking up my things. Silence. Then, picking up your... What? What are you talking about? Ashley, what's going on? You tell me, Brandon. Where were you last night? Another silence, longer this time. I could almost hear the gears turning, the calculations being made, which lie to choose, how much truth to mix in. I told you, Travis was drunk. I had to drive him home. It took longer than I expected. Right, I said. And was Jennifer Castillo at Travis's house too? Or did you stop by her place separately? The silence that followed was different from the others. It wasn't the silence of a man choosing a lie. It was the silence of a man realizing the lies were over. Ashley, his voice dropped low. Listen to me. It's not what you think. Don't do that, I said, and my voice was steady. So steady it surprised even me. Don't insult me by telling me it's not what I think. I read the emails, Brandon. All of them. 5 months of emails. You and I were never comfortable. We were alive. Remember that one? You went through my email? You were logged in on my phone. And honestly, that's what you want to focus on right now. The method of discovery? Kevin was watching me from across the living room, a box of my books in his arms, his jaw tight. I held up one finger. Give me a minute. And walked out onto the balcony. Ashley, please, just come back to the hotel. We can talk about this. It was just emails. Nothing happened. I swear to you, nothing physical happened with Jennifer. You left me on our wedding night, Brandon. You left your wife alone in a hotel room on your wedding night to go see your ex-girlfriend. Whether you slept with her or not, and honestly, I don't even care anymore, you chose her. On the one night that was supposed to be ours, you chose her. I made a mistake, he said. And now there was something frantic in his voice, a crack in the facade. A stupid, horrible mistake. But we just got married. We can fix this. People go to counseling. They work through things. Don't throw away our whole future over one bad night." One bad night? I almost laughed. 5 months of emails is not one bad night. Telling your ex that your relationship with me is just comfortable. That's not a mistake, Brandon. That's a confession. I didn't mean it like that. She was in my head and I was confused and the wedding pressure was getting to me and... "Stop," I said. "Just stop. I'm not doing this. I'm taking my things and I'm going to my mom's house and you're going to hear from a lawyer." "A lawyer? Ashley, we've been married for less than 24 hours. And whose fault is that?" I hung up. My hands were shaking. Not from sadness, but from adrenaline. From the sheer electric clarity of knowing exactly what I needed to do. Kevin drove me to my mom's house in Mint Hill with the truck full of my belongings. My mom opened the front door, took one look at my face, and her expression crumbled. "Oh, baby," she whispered. "Oh, Ashley." "I'm okay, Mom," I said. "I'm going to be okay, but I need to stay here for a while." She didn't ask why. Mothers know. They always know. She just held the door open and helped Kevin carry boxes to my old bedroom, the one with the lavender walls and the window that overlooked her tiny backyard garden. That afternoon, while Kevin went to pick up lunch, I sat at my mom's kitchen table with my laptop and started making a list. Practical things. The lease on the Ballantyne apartment. My name was primary, Brandon was listed as an additional occupant. Our joint checking account at First National. I'd set it up myself, and I knew exactly how to separate my funds. The credit card we shared, I was the primary holder. He was an authorized user. The wedding expenses, I'd paid for 60% of the total cost out of my own savings. And then there was the matter of the house. Because here's the thing I haven't told you yet. The thing that made this whole situation so much worse than a husband sneaking off to see his ex. 2 months before the wedding, Brandon and I had put an offer on a house. A 3-bedroom, 2-bath ranch in Matthews, listed at $347,000. We'd been approved for a mortgage through my bank. I'd handled the paperwork myself, leveraged my employee discount on the origination fee, and we'd put down a joint earnest money deposit of $8,500. Closing was scheduled for November 3rd, 3 weeks after the wedding. That deposit, half of it was mine, $4,250 from my savings, and the mortgage application was based on both of our incomes, both of our credit scores. Walking away from Brandon meant walking away from that house, that deposit, and the future I'd spent months carefully constructing. Or did it? I was still sitting at my mom's kitchen table, staring at the mortgage documents on my laptop, when my phone buzzed. Not Brandon this time. An unknown number with a 704 area code. I answered. "Hello? Is this Ashley?" A woman's voice. Soft, careful, like someone approaching a stray animal. "Ashley Holloway?" "It's Parker," I said automatically. "Who is this?" A pause. Then, "My name is Jennifer. Jennifer Castillo. Please don't hang up." Every muscle in my body went rigid. My mom looked up from the sink where she was washing dishes, saw my face, and turned off the water. "I know you probably hate me right now," Jennifer continued, "and you have every right to, but there's something you need to know, something Brandon didn't tell you, something he would never tell you." I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles went white. My voice came out flat, controlled. "You have 30 seconds. The emails you read, those aren't all of it. There are texts, too. Hundreds of them. On a second phone, a prepaid one he keeps in his car in the glove compartment under the owner's manual." My stomach dropped. A second phone. Yes, and Ashley. Last night wasn't the first time he came to see me. He's been coming to my apartment every Thursday night for the last 3 months. He told me you had a standing girls' night with your friend Danielle on Thursdays. He said you two had an understanding. The room tilted. Every Thursday for 3 months. I did have a standing plan with Danielle on Thursdays. Wine and reality TV at her place in Huntersville. Brandon knew my schedule down to the hour. He'd used it like a blueprint. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. Jennifer's voice cracked. "Because last night, after he left my place, I found something on my bathroom counter, a receipt from a jewelry store, not the one where he bought your ring, a different store. And it was for a second ring, Ashley. A ring he bought 3 weeks ago. He told me he was going to leave you after the wedding, that he only went through with it because of the house and the mortgage and the deposit. He said once the house closed, he'd file for divorce and we'd move in together." I couldn't breathe. The kitchen, my mother's familiar kitchen with the yellow curtains and the coffee maker and the magnet from Myrtle Beach on the fridge, it all felt foreign, like I'd stumbled into someone else's life. "He was going to use me," I said slowly, "for the house." "I think so," Jennifer whispered. "And I think he was using me too. I just didn't want to see it until I found that receipt and realized he's not choosing either of us. He's choosing himself. He's always, only ever choosing himself." I sat there for a long moment, the phone pressed to my ear, my mother hovering nearby with a dish towel twisted in her hands and worry etched across her face. "Jennifer," I said finally, "that receipt, do you still have it? I took a photo of it. I can send it to you." "Send it." And Jennifer, the texts on the prepaid phone. "If I needed proof, could you help me get it?" There was a pause. Then, very quietly, "I already downloaded everything to a flash drive. I was going to give it to him as some kind of leverage. I don't know. I wasn't thinking straight, but yes, I have it, all of it." I closed my eyes, drew in a long, slow breath. "Don't give it to him," I said. "Give it to me, and don't tell Brandon we spoke." I hung up and looked at my mother. She was standing perfectly still, the dish towel pressed against her chest, her eyes wide. "Mom," I said, "I need to find a divorce attorney today, and I need to call my branch manager at First National about that mortgage application." My mom set down the towel, walked over to the table, and put both hands on my shoulders. "What did she tell you?" "That it's worse than I thought, much worse, and that my husband bought a second ring that wasn't for me." My mother's face did something I'd never seen before. It went from worry to fury in a single heartbeat, a cold, controlled fury that I recognized because I'd felt it myself, 12 hours ago, sitting on the edge of a hotel bed in a white dress. "I'll get you the name of the lawyer who handled my divorce from your father," she said. "She's retired now, but her daughter took over the practice. And Ashley?" "Yeah, Mom. Whatever you need, whatever it costs. We handle this together." I nodded, and for the first time since I'd read those emails, I felt something besides that cold, locked-down calm. I felt the beginning of something sharper, something with teeth. Because Brandon Holloway thought he'd married a woman who would cry and beg and eventually accept whatever scraps he tossed her way. He thought he could walk out on our wedding night, come back smelling like another woman's soap, and I'd be so desperate to save my marriage that I'd swallow it whole. But he didn't marry that woman. And what he didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know yet, was that the house closing was in 3 weeks. The mortgage application had both our names on it, and I was the loan officer who had processed it. I knew every clause, every contingency, every single way that deal could fall apart. And I knew something else too. Something I'd discovered in those emails between him and Jennifer that Brandon had been too careless to realize he'd revealed. A detail about his finances that changed everything. A detail that, once verified, wouldn't just end our marriage. It would end the entire life he'd built on lies. But I needed proof first. Real proof. The kind that holds up in court. And I had exactly 3 weeks to get it before that house closed and Brandon got what he really wanted. The clock was ticking. And for the first time in this whole nightmare, I was the one in control. Monday morning. That's when the first crack in my armor appeared. Not from Brandon, not from Jennifer, but from a place I never expected. I was sitting in my old bedroom at my mom's house, still in the clothes I'd slept in, trying to draft an email to my branch manager, Rebecca Torres, about the mortgage application. I needed to flag it, explain that the circumstances of the borrowers had changed, that the co-applicant and I were separating, that the closing scheduled for November 3rd needed to be reviewed. It was the responsible thing to do, the ethical thing. But my fingers wouldn't type the words, because writing that email meant admitting, officially, professionally, in a document that would be filed and reviewed, that my marriage was over before it started, that the loan officer who processed her own mortgage had missed the biggest red flag of all. The man she was buying a house with was a fraud. My phone buzzed, a text from Danielle. "Hey girl, how's married life? Let's send honeymoon pics." I stared at that message for a full minute. We hadn't told anyone yet. Not Danielle, not Brandon's family, not my coworkers. As far as the world knew, Ashley and Brandon Holloway were somewhere celebrating, wrapped in newlywed bliss. The thought of explaining the truth over and over to every single person in my life made my chest feel like someone was standing on it. I didn't reply to Danielle. I couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I opened my laptop and pulled up the joint checking account. What I saw made the room go cold. Brandon had made a withdrawal at 7:42 a.m. that morning, Sunday morning. While I was loading boxes into Kevin's truck, he'd walked into a First National branch, the one on South Boulevard, not the Providence Road location where I worked, and withdrawn $3,200 in cash. That left $1,847.63 in the account. The balance had been $5,047.63 the day before. Our combined wedding gift money, plus what we'd kept as a household buffer. He was moving money, already. While texting me about how we could work through this, he was pulling cash out of our joint account. I called the bank's internal line immediately, got transferred to operations, explained who I was, gave my employee ID, and requested a temporary hold on the account pending a dispute review. The woman on the phone, Sandra, I'd worked with her for 2 years, hesitated. "Ashley, I can flag it, but since both names are on the account, either party can make withdrawals. You know that." "I know, but I'm also requesting removal of the secondary account holder. I opened this account. I was the primary. He was added after we moved in together." "That requires both parties' signatures or a court order." "Then flag it. Flag everything. And Sandra, if he tries to withdraw again, I want to be notified immediately." She agreed, but when I hung up, the reality hit me like a physical weight. He was ahead of me. While I'd been carefully packing boxes and calling my brother, Brandon had been making moves. He knew what was coming, and he was protecting himself. That afternoon, I drove to the law office of Patricia Wynn, the daughter of the attorney who'd handled my mother's divorce 23 years ago. Her office was in a small brick building on East Independence Boulevard, sandwiched between a tax preparer and a nail salon. The waiting room had fake plants and magazines from 2022. Patricia was in her early 40s, sharp-eyed with short auburn hair and a handshake that meant business. She listened to everything: the wedding night, the emails, Jennifer's phone call, the second phone, the second ring, the house deposit, the withdrawal. Without interrupting once, she took notes on a yellow legal pad, her pen moving in quick, precise strokes. When I finished, she set down the pen and looked at me. "How long have you been married?" "Technically, 48 hours. North Carolina requires a 1-year separation period before a divorce can be finalized. There's no way around that. You'll need to live separately for 12 consecutive months before we can file." My stomach sank. A year? A year. But here's the good news. And there is good news, Ashley. North Carolina is one of the few states that still recognizes alienation of affection as a civil cause of action. That means you can potentially sue Jennifer Castillo for interfering in your marriage. More importantly, you can sue Brandon for what's called criminal conversation if you can prove sexual relations occurred during the marriage. The marriage that's been 48 hours long. Doesn't matter. Married is married. And based on what you've described, the emails, The Thursday visits, the second phone. You have a strong foundation for both claims, but I need evidence, hard evidence, not just your testimony. Jennifer has a flash drive, I said, texts from the prepaid phone, and a photo of a receipt for a ring he bought her. Patricia's eyebrows went up. The ex-girlfriend is cooperating with you? She called me. She's angry too. He was playing both of us. That's unusual and useful. Get me that flash drive as soon as possible. And Ashley, don't confront Brandon again. Don't tell him about Jennifer's call. Don't tell him about this meeting. And for the love of God, don't let him know about the flash drive. The less he knows about what you have, the more leverage we hold. I nodded, but there was something else gnawing at me. The house, I said. The closing is November 3rd, 3 weeks from now. What happens if I pull out? Patricia leaned back in her chair. If you pull out, you likely lose your half of the earnest money deposit, $4,250, unless there's a contingency in the purchase agreement that covers this situation. There's a financing contingency, I said. Standard clause. If the mortgage falls through, we get the deposit back. And can the mortgage fall through? I looked at her. She looked at me, and something passed between us, an understanding that didn't need to be spoken out loud. I'm the loan officer who processed the application, I said carefully. If something were to come to light during the final review, a discrepancy in the financials, an undisclosed debt, a material change in the borrower's circumstances, the underwriter would flag it. The loan could be denied. Patricia nodded slowly. And if the loan is denied due to the borrower's own misrepresentation, that's not your fault. That's a factual finding. Exactly. Then I suggest you do your job, Ashley, thoroughly. I left Patricia's office with a $2,500 retainer agreement and the first real sense of direction I'd had since Saturday night. But the clarity didn't last. It couldn't. Because what happened next nearly broke me in a way Brandon never could. Tuesday evening. I was at my mom's house sitting on the couch trying to eat a bowl of soup that tasted like nothing. Kevin had gone home to his apartment in Concord. My mom was in the kitchen, pretending to organize the pantry, but really just hovering the way she does when she's worried. My phone rang. Brandon's mom, Karen Holloway. I almost didn't answer, but Karen had always been decent to me. She'd helped address wedding invitations, had given us a $500 check as an engagement gift, had told me once over Thanksgiving wine that I was the best thing that ever happened to her son. I picked up out of some residual respect. Ashley. Karen's voice was tight, clipped, not warm. I just got off the phone with Brandon. Okay, I said. He told me everything, and I have to say, I'm very disappointed in you. The soup spoon stopped halfway to my mouth. Excuse me. He said you went through his private emails, that you're overreacting to some old messages from an ex, and that you moved out of the apartment without even trying to have a conversation. He said you're threatening him with a lawyer after 2 days of marriage. Ashley. 2 days. Karen, did he tell you where he was on our wedding night? He said he was helping Travis. And that you took that and turned it into some conspiracy because you found old emails. They weren't old emails, they were, I don't want to hear it. Her voice went sharp. My son is devastated. He's sitting in that apartment alone, crying, wondering why the woman he married won't even talk to him. And you're running off to your mother's house like a child. Marriage is hard, Ashley. It takes work. You don't just quit at the first sign of trouble. Something inside me, that cold, locked-down thing that had kept me functional since Saturday night, started to fracture. Because Karen wasn't some stranger. She was supposed to be family, and she was calling me a quitter. She was calling me the problem. Karen, I said, and I heard my own voice shaking for the first time. Your son left me alone on our wedding night to go see his ex-girlfriend. He has a secret phone. He's been having an affair for months. He bought her a ring. Silence. Then, that's ridiculous. Brandon would never do that. Jennifer is ancient history. You're being paranoid, and frankly, you're being cruel. That boy worships you. That boy withdrew $3,200 from our joint account the morning after our wedding. Because he's scared. Because his wife abandoned him. What was he supposed to do? I couldn't speak. The words were stuck behind a wall of something hot and terrible that was rising in my throat. My mom had come out of the kitchen and was standing in the doorway watching me. "I'm going to hang up now, Karen," I said. "If you throw this marriage away, Ashley, that's on you, not on my son, on you." The line went dead. I sat there holding the phone, and for the first time since that hotel room, my eyes burned. Not because of what Karen said, but because of what it meant. Brandon had gotten to his family first. He'd shaped the narrative. In his version, he was the heartbroken groom, and I was the unstable bride who blew up a marriage over nothing. And if he'd told his mother, he'd told others, his friends, his coworkers, maybe even people at my bank. My mom sat down beside me on the couch and took the soup bowl from my hands. What did she say? That it's my fault, that I'm being cruel, that Brandon worships me. My mom's jaw tightened. Linda Parker didn't raise a quitter, and she didn't raise a fool either. You know what you saw in those emails. You know where he was that night. But what if nobody believes me, Mom? What if he tells everyone I'm the crazy one, the paranoid wife who couldn't handle a few old messages? What if I go through all of this? The lawyer, the divorce, the house. And at the end, everyone just thinks I destroyed my own marriage. My mom took my hand. Her fingers were rough from years of work, but her grip was steady. Then they think that, and you still know the truth. But baby, you've got more than the truth. You told me that girl has proof. The flash drive. Jennifer's flash drive with the texts from the prepaid phone. The photo of the ring receipt. Evidence that Brandon had been lying to everyone, not just me. I texted Jennifer that night. "Can we meet tomorrow? Somewhere private?" She replied in under a minute. "There's a Panera on South Tryon. I can be there at noon." I barely slept. The bed in my old room was a twin. Too small, too narrow, the mattress still dipped in the same spot from when I was 17. I stared at the ceiling and listened to my mom's house creak and settle around me. And I thought about what Brandon was doing right now. Was he in our apartment? Was he on the phone with Jennifer, reassuring her? Was he on that prepaid phone, the one hidden under the owner's manual in the glove compartment of his black Audi, texting her things he'd never say to me? I thought about the emails. You and I were never comfortable. We were alive. I thought about every Thursday night I'd spent at Danielle's drinking wine and watching reality TV, while my fiancé drove across Charlotte to another woman's bed. I thought about every good morning text, every forehead kiss, every time he said, "I trust you, babe," and how each one now felt like a lie wearing the skin of love. At 2 a.m., I got out of bed and went to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and I did something I'm not proud of. I sat at the table and I cried. Not the delicate, cinematic kind of crying, the ugly kind. The kind where your whole body shakes and your nose runs and you have to press a dish towel against your face so your mother doesn't hear you through the thin walls of her small house in Mint Hill. I cried for the wedding that was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, for the house in Matthews with 3 bedrooms that I'd already mentally decorated, for the children I'd imagined. 2, maybe 3, just like he'd said on our first date. For the version of Brandon that never existed, the one I'd loved so completely that I'd ignored every warning sign. Then I stopped, washed my face, drank the water, and went back to bed. Because tomorrow I was meeting Jennifer Castillo at a Panera Bread on South Tryon Street, and she was going to hand me a flash drive that contained every text message my husband had sent from a phone I wasn't supposed to know about. Brandon thought he was the smartest person in this marriage. He thought he'd covered every angle, played every side. He thought his wife would crumble and his ex would stay loyal, and his mother would run interference, and eventually everyone would just fall in line. But he forgot something critical. He forgot that I'm a loan officer. I spend my entire professional life looking at the numbers behind the story people tell. The real numbers, the ones that don't lie. And somewhere in those text messages, somewhere in those financial records, there was a number that Brandon Holloway couldn't explain away. I just had to find it. The Panera on South Tryon was half empty at noon on a Wednesday. I got there 15 minutes early, ordered a coffee I didn't plan to drink, and sat in a booth near the back where I could see the door. My hands were steady. My mind was not. Jennifer Castillo walked in at 12:03. I recognized her immediately from the photos I'd seen on Brandon's old Facebook. Dark hair, olive skin, petite. She was prettier in person than I expected, and I hated myself for noticing that, for measuring myself against her even now. She slid into the booth across from me and placed a small black flash drive on the table between us, like it was a grenade with the pin pulled. "Everything's on there," she said. 3 months of texts, photos he sent me, and the receipt for the ring. I picked up the flash drive and turned it over in my fingers. Such a small thing, light as nothing, but it held the weight of my entire future. "Jennifer, I need to ask you something, and I need the truth." She nodded. "The Thursday nights. Were you and Brandon physically involved?" She looked down at her hands. "Yes, since August. He told me you two were basically roommates, that the engagement was a formality, that he was only going through with the wedding because of the house." "And you believed him?" "I wanted to believe him. There's a difference, and it's a difference I'm not proud of." Her voice cracked. "He has a way of making you feel like you're the only real thing in his life, like everyone else is just background noise." I knew that feeling. I'd lived inside it for 2 years. "There's something else," Jennifer said. "Something I didn't mention on the phone because I wasn't sure it mattered, but I've been thinking about it and I think it does." "Tell me." "About 6 weeks ago, Brandon asked me to hold some cash for him. He said it was a bonus from work that he didn't want showing up in his bank account because of the mortgage application. Something about debt-to-income ratios. He gave me an envelope with $11,000 in it." The room went very still. $11,000, I repeated. "Cash. He said he'd pick it up after the closing. I still have it in my apartment in a shoebox in my closet." $11,000. Undisclosed cash. Hidden from the mortgage application. As a loan officer, I knew exactly what that was. It was mortgage fraud. Material misrepresentation on a federal loan application. If Brandon had assets he deliberately hid from the underwriter to manipulate his debt-to-income ratio, that wasn't just a marital problem. That was a federal crime. "Jennifer, I need you to do something for me. Don't give him that money back. Not yet." "What are you going to do?" "My job," I said. I drove straight from Panera to the First National branch on Providence Road. My branch. I walked past the tellers, past the customer service desks, past the framed motivational posters about building your future together, and knocked on my branch manager's door. Rebecca Torres looked up from her computer. "Ashley, you're not supposed to be back until next week. How's the honeymoon?" "There wasn't one," I said. "Rebecca, I need to talk to you about the Holloway mortgage application, file number 2024-MC-08847. There's a problem." I sat down and told her everything, not the personal details, not the affair, just the financial facts, that my co-applicant had undisclosed cash assets of at least $11,000 that were not reported on the application, that he had made a suspicious withdrawal of $3,200 from our joint account, that the circumstances of the borrowers had materially changed, and the application as submitted contained information I now believe to be inaccurate. Rebecca listened with the careful attention of someone who understood that mortgage fraud wasn't something you swept under the rug. When I finished, she picked up her phone and called the underwriting department. "I need a review flag on file 2024-MC-08847, she said. "Possible material misrepresentation." "Yes, before closing. Yes, I understand." She hung up and looked at me. "Ashley, you know what this means. If the underwriter finds a discrepancy, the loan gets denied." "I know." And you'll lose the house. I know that too. Are you sure? I thought about the house in Matthews. 3 bedrooms. The yard I'd imagined planting a garden in. The nursery I'd mentally painted soft yellow. All of it built on lies, financed by fraud, shared with a man who'd bought another woman a ring while planning our future. I'm sure, I said. The next 2 weeks were a controlled demolition. Patricia Wynn, my attorney, moved fast. She filed a complaint for divorce based on separation, initiated the 12-month clock, and simultaneously prepared civil claims for alienation of affection and criminal conversation. She subpoenaed Brandon's phone records, both phones, through a discovery motion that his attorney, a guy named Doug Prescott, from a firm in Uptown, tried and failed to block. The flash drive from Jennifer was devastating. 3 months of texts laid bare a relationship that was anything but just emails. There were explicit messages. There were photos. There were plans, detailed plans, for what their life would look like after Brandon divorced me. He told Jennifer they'd move into the Matthews house together, that he'd keep the equity from the sale of the Ballantyne apartment lease transfer, that I'd get over it eventually because Ashley's practical like that. Practical, comfortable. Those were the words he used to describe me. Not passionate, not alive, just practical and comfortable, like a savings account, like a reliable appliance. But the real bomb, the one that detonated Brandon's entire carefully constructed life, came from the mortgage file. The underwriter, a meticulous woman named Gloria Fernandez, who I'd worked with for 3 years, pulled the application for review and found exactly what I knew she'd find. Brandon's bank statements, submitted as part of the application, showed no record of the $11,000 he'd given Jennifer to hold. His reported assets were understated by that amount. His debt-to-income ratio, as calculated on the application, was based on incomplete information. Gloria flagged it. The loan was denied on October 29th, 5 days before the scheduled closing. The financing contingency kicked in, and our earnest money deposit, all $8,500, was returned. I got my $4,250 back. Brandon got his $4,250 back. But that wasn't the end of it. Because Gloria was required by federal regulation to report suspected mortgage fraud to the appropriate authorities, she filed a suspicious activity report. That report went to the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. I didn't orchestrate that. I want to be clear. I didn't ask Gloria to file anything. I simply disclosed the truth about my co-applicant's hidden assets, and the system did what the system is designed to do. Brandon's own lie triggered a federal investigation. He found out about the loan denial on October 30th. I know because Patricia's office received a frantic call from Doug Prescott demanding to know what the hell was going on. Patricia calmly explained that the loan had been denied due to material misrepresentation by one of the borrowers, and that any further questions should be directed to the lender's compliance department. Brandon called me that night. I didn't answer. He called 7 times, left 4 voicemails. The last one was the one I saved, the one Patricia later played during the mediation hearing. Ashley, what did you do? What did you tell them? That mortgage was our future. Our house, our life. You had no right. You had no right to blow this up just because you're angry. Call me back. We need to talk. This isn't over. His voice in that voicemail. It wasn't sad. It wasn't remorseful. It was furious. The fury of a man whose scheme had been dismantled by the very woman he'd underestimated. 3 days later, Brandon showed up at my mom's house. I was in the kitchen when I heard the doorbell, then my mom's voice, sharp and cold. "You are not welcome here, Brandon." "Linda, please, I just need 5 minutes with Ashley." I walked to the front door. He was standing on the porch, and he looked terrible. Unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, wearing a wrinkled shirt I recognized from the back of his closet. For one brief, treacherous second, I felt something. Not love, not pity, just the ghost of what I'd once felt, passing through me like a cold draft. 5 minutes, I said. My mom stayed in the hallway behind me, arms crossed. Ash, this has gotten out of control. The lawyer, the mortgage, I'm hearing things about a federal report. Are you trying to destroy me? You destroyed yourself, Brandon. I just stopped covering for you. It was a mistake. Jennifer was a mistake. I got confused. I got scared before the wedding, and she was there, and You bought her a ring. My voice was quiet, but it cut through his excuses like a blade. You hid $11,000 at her apartment. You told her you were going to divorce me after the house closed and move her in. That's not confusion, Brandon. That's a plan. His face went white, completely white. She told you about the money? She told me everything, and it's all documented. Every text, every email, every receipt. He stared at me, and I watched something collapse behind his eyes. Not guilt, realization. The realization that there was no angle left to play, no lie that could patch this, no version of the story where he came out looking like anything other than exactly what he was. What do you want? He whispered. A clean divorce. You waive any claim to my savings, my retirement, my credit accounts. You pay your own legal fees, and you sign a consent order acknowledging fault so I don't have to spend the next year proving what we both already know. And if I don't? Then Patricia files the alienation of affection suit against Jennifer, the criminal conversation claim against you, and we let a judge look at the flash drive, the emails, the phone records, and the federal fraud report. Your pharmaceutical company runs background checks annually, Brandon. How do you think a fraud investigation looks on your record? He left without another word, walked to his Audi, sat in the driver's seat for a full 3 minutes without starting the engine, and then drove away. His attorney called Patricia the next morning. Brandon agreed to every term. The divorce was finalized 12 months and 4 days after our wedding. I got my maiden name back, Ashley Parker. I got my savings, my 401k, my credit score intact. Brandon got his name on a federal report and a consent order that documented his infidelity for any future court to reference. Karen Holloway never called me again. Not to apologize, not to acknowledge what her son had done. I heard through Danielle, who heard through Travis, who apparently felt guilty enough to start talking, that Karen told the family I had driven Brandon to it by being too focused on work. Some people will rearrange reality before they'll rearrange their loyalty. I made peace with that. Jennifer Castillo and I never became friends. We weren't going to braid each other's hair and bond over our shared heartbreak. This isn't that kind of story. But she testified truthfully in the mediation, handed over the flash drive, and returned the $11,000 to Brandon's attorney as part of the settlement. The last thing she ever said to me was in the parking lot outside Patricia's office. I'm sorry I was part of this. I nodded. That was enough. Brandon left Charlotte 6 months after the divorce, transferred to a position in Atlanta. I heard he and Jennifer didn't end up together either. Turns out, when the lies are stripped away, what's left isn't passion or excitement. It's just two people who enabled each other's worst impulses, staring across a table with nothing real between them. As for me, I stayed. I stayed at First National, got promoted to senior loan officer, and moved into a one-bedroom apartment in Plaza Midwood with a small balcony that overlooks a row of crepe myrtles. My credit score is 763 now. My savings account has more in it than it did before I ever met Brandon Holloway. My mom comes over every Sunday for coffee, and sometimes Kevin drives down from Concord, and we sit on that balcony and talk about nothing important, and it feels like everything. I'm not going to tell you I'm grateful for what happened. I'm not going to wrap this up with a bow and say the pain made me stronger. The pain was just pain. It cost me a year of my life, $12,000 in legal fees, and a piece of my ability to trust that I'm still slowly rebuilding. But I will tell you this, on my wedding night, when I sat on the edge of that hotel bed in my white dress and read those 7 words, "Don't wait up, need to handle something, be back later." Brandon was betting that I'd break. He was counting on it. His entire plan depended on me being the kind of woman who would cry and beg and eventually accept. He married the wrong woman, and the moment he walked out that door, he lost everything. He just didn't know it yet.